Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Run It Back, and I am joined by one of my favorite players in the world, Joe Hachem, joining me from lovely Melbourne. It is daylight in both places. I'm in Las Vegas, he's in Melbourne, and we still somehow managed to make this happen. And this episode is a little bit special because we are not entirely live because we had to find a way to do this at a proper time for both of us. So cheers to the coffee that you're having, Joe. First and foremost, how are things going over there?
G'day, Rem. How are things going over here? Interesting question. I'm at a point where I'm about to lose my mind.
Oh, wow.
Like for someone who loves their own company and loves staying at home, even I've had enough of this COVID nonsense. Like it's, and we've been so lucky in Australia, but they're just such panic thwarts, like we have 2 new cases. Oh, we need to, lock everyone down again. And I live in the CBD, and there's actually nobody here. There's just people who live here. The people in the offices are being asked to stay at home. The tourists aren't allowed to come. So my beautiful city is looking quite the shadow of itself.
Right. I mean, some of my best memories of Australia are those morning walks from Crown to the South Melbourne Market to get a coffee, to get some breakfast. So, those are the memories that probably stand out to anyone who's ever visited the city. And that's not happening for a while. But to pivot into the topic of today, we've got some fond memories to look back on because we are watching the 2005 main event final table. Well familiar with you, I might assume. All right, so Joe, to get sort of the mood going here for the final table, let's play the intro. ESPN always did such a great job with the intros for these to get some excitement going. So let's see if we can get some adrenaline running here at the start of this show.
And then there were nine players who've conquered the largest field in poker history. Yes! 9 players who witnessed the crestfallen, the victorious, the inspirational, the bizarre. Bingo! No! They've seen the passionate prevail. And the determined defeated.
Oh well.
Now these 9 men from across the globe stand on the doorstep of history.
Bring them on!
Each one now a millionaire. Each one knowing that within their grasp lies the World Championship bracelet and $7.5 million. Yes!
It's a lot of money. First prize will change my life 7 times more than what $1 million does.
It's a life-changing number, but the bracelet would be pretty nice.
I mean, I'm happy with $1 million, but I'm gonna go for the win.
The wait is over.
I don't believe it!
The final table is down.
All right, Joe, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you see this again?
Oh man, the emotions are crazy. Like it just, to me, it's always been like the best final table of all time. Like it's just the hype, the build up. And like you said, ESPN did such a great job. I truly believe that 05 was the pinnacle of the online of the poker boom, not 06. I honestly believe it was 05 because by 06 things started getting a little bit murky, and we started having a few more problems. And even though the number in 06 was greater, I think 05 was just truly amazing. I mean, I feel, talk about luck of timing to be at the right place, the right time, my first trip to Vegas for me to be able to bring back the bracelet, I'm getting goosebumps. Yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. Yeah, we got a lot to cover here at this final table. I mean, Mike Matusow, the center of attention for the broadcast leading up to this final table. You, of course, sort of bobbing and weaving your way through the field. You were never really, primetime spotlight until some of the later days where we got to see you on the feature table just a little bit. But then, of course, you found your moment to shine, turning a small stack into the win here at this final table, which is honestly incredible. For everybody watching right now, if this is a first for you, if you're seeing this for the very first time, please know that the entire 2005 main event is now available on PokerGO. We are putting all the classics on PokerGO 06 is coming next week, then 07, then 08, and so on and so forth until the entire library is complete. And now we're watching the 05 main event. So if you're enjoying this content, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us a lot. And we're kicking things off with Steve Danneman getting involved with the pocket jacks. And we all know where this is going, Joe. What was going through your mind when this hand was going down?
To be honest, when the cards were turned over, I was thinking, okay, we're hopefully going to be down to 8 after this. Obviously I was friends with both. By that stage, I was friends with both Scotty and Mike. So I wasn't rooting one way or another, although I figured it would be easier to get rid of Mike, seeing as he's the known player with the runs on the board. But yeah, I'm going, wow, this is what a great way to start this final table. And I didn't know that Steve had jacks at that point, obviously. And the emotion here just tells the whole story of the final table.
All right.
If you guys just watch this clip here, it sets the mood for the entire final table.
All right, so let's listen into what happens.
I call. Lazar is right there, of course, with the call. Oh, and look at Mike Mattisau, who opened up with kings.
It's up to them. It's up to the gods.
It's about normal for me, right?
It's up to the gods.
Go get him!
Scott Lazar's dad, Stuart.
I had jacks.
It's about normal for me, though. Cooler.
What a showdown to start this championship table. Aces versus kings.
And Mattisau just feels snake bit again.
Mattisau's mom and brother now with everyone else ready to watch the flop.
Time!
Look at this thing.
Unreal, right? Unreal. The emotion, the crowd, how small it was in there. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah. Were you there, Rem, at that point?
No. This is way before my time.
Yeah, before your time.
Yeah. I watched this at home on a DVD that I borrowed from a friend.
The Benny's bullpen was filled to the rafters. It was like absolutely, there was no room, and it was like 100 degrees in there the whole night.
Wow.
Mattisau can't bear the watch. Lazar is the one who made the
Oh
eliminator.
my
Lazar
God,
needs an
this is
ace.
amazing.
Lazar on the river, or he's the first one out of here.
Now the river.
Go, Scotty. And Mike's in a coma.
Yeah. And Mike thought that his buddy said that you've got it, and Mike loses his mind over that.
Yeah, he does.
I think Scott Lazar broke a microphone in that moment. The loudest scream ever recorded at a World Series of Poker final table. Joe, you said that this hand really sort of set the stage for the day, for this whole sort of event unfolding in front of us. But take us back to the moments before this final table in the morning. Were you excited? Were you nervous? How did you come into this day, and how did it sort of start for you?
I was pretty focused. I was just in the zone the entire time. I mean, I was nervous. I was fighting back offers from online sites as well. Lucky I had my brother Tony there, who I didn't actually deal with him, but I was getting like every 5 minutes another offer, 50,000 for this, sign up with that, blah blah. And I just turned everything down. I said, I don't want to wear any patches. I don't want to wear. That was the only thing that I had to deal with in the morning. I said, Tony, tell him I don't care. I don't want to. If I win the main event, the 50,000 would be insignificant, or the 100,000 would be insignificant. I was just determined to stay focused and not worry about getting a little reward for some nonsense and being attached to maybe a group that I didn't want to be with in the long run. So, but to be honest, I was pretty calm. I was just in the zone, and I'm someone who follows routine a lot. So I did the same routine as I did every other day.
So then The lead up to this final table, obviously, was a long road, a lot of long days, a lot of grinding, a lot of battles. In the later stages, you made it onto the feature table. But what was your journey like to the final table? Was it easy? Were you coasting, or had you been sort of on a shorter stack for quite some time?
I had a bit of a tumultuous ride. I finished day one like really strong. Day two, I basically finished where I started day two from. Day 3, 4, and I kind of just was sitting middle of the road, a little bit under, never really getting ahead of the field. Day 5, I was starting to get short stacked, and I was sitting at a table at the end of day 5 with Ivy and John Juanda, and I don't remember who else. And it was just before I went to the feature table, and I basically was one of 3 short stacks there, and it was survive or die. And it's funny, like in the space of 10 hands, poker's so funny. I think I beat jacks with ace king, and then my jacks held up against his ace king. So I doubled up to the same guy twice. And so by the time I got to the feature table, I actually wasn't in dire straits. I was a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, but it was, I wouldn't say I was like short stacking the whole tournament, but I wasn't ever out in front.
Right.
Like, you know, in a comfortable zone.
So were you going to be happy with whatever, or despite the short stack, did you have that ambition and that focus on the top prize, which, you know, to some people, when you're short, that might seem unrealistic, but I also know you got sort of that eye of the tiger going. And I know you're, you know, not someone who just takes stuff for granted.
So here's what happened, right? Day 5, I don't know. I am who I am. I don't make any apologies for it. Right? Day 5. Do you remember how much? I probably don't remember, but at that time, people were creating so much, trying to get so much attention to be on TV. So day 4, day 5, when the cameras came out, I remember sitting down at table day 5, and I just respectfully said to all my table mates, and I said, listen, guys, please, can we not act like idiots? Can we just play poker? If we deserve to be on television, the cameras will come. Let's not do anything stupid, because, you know, you're watching the room and everyone's just doing stupid things, jumping on chairs. And can we just play poker? And that part of my strategy was, I want to stay focused on the game. I don't want to be, you know, like, and I don't want distractions. And then, lo and behold, almost everybody at my final table pulls out a sheet of paper from their pocket, looking at the money ladder. and I was the only one. I had no idea, right? I knew approximately, obviously, but I had no idea. And I said, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want. So I used that to my advantage. So that was the real first point where I started thinking, okay, doesn't matter. I think I have an edge here. I can push. Then the next thing that really motivated me was we got down to the final 100 or so, and there were 2 Australians left, me and Sarah Bilney, another female from Australia. And I was determined I was going to be the last Australian standing. Nothing was going to stop me from being the last Australian standing. So that was the next what got me. Then when we got to 27, I realized that my mortgage now was paid off.
Wow.
So that was the next thing that got me. And up until the final 4, nothing really stands out. I just played my game and just tried to duck and weave. But probably the most critical thing happened when what's his name? The Irishman.
Oh, Andy Black.
when Andy Black busted, right, I started giving myself a pat on the back and saying, good on you, Joe. You're the last Australian. You've guaranteed $2 million. You're the best Australian performer in the World Series of Poker history. Good for you. Then straight away I slapped myself silly and I said, what are you doing? Shut up, you dickhead. No one remembers who comes second. So put your head down and hurry up and win this thing. So that were my points throughout the whole way that kept me going.
Wow, that's so awesome to hear. The fact that you point out that at 27 left, the mortgage was paid off is sort of an eye-opening thing for you to say, because you never made it seem as though the money was a big deal. You never made it seem as though you needed the next pay jump. Like, where did that come from?
I didn't know till we finished. I wasn't thinking about it. It's when we finished that night, what happened was, the story is, when we finished that night with 27, and the boys came up to me and go, Joe, you're guaranteed, I don't know, 350,000 or whatever it was. I can't remember. And the penny dropped for me when I was speaking to my wife, because I spoke to my wife every night after we played. And literally, I was in tears to her when the penny dropped that, fuck, our mortgage is paid. But up until then, it wasn't something I was aiming for. That's why. And you're right. I never made it about the money. It was never, like, for me, it was just, I want to perform the best I can. I want to win that bracelet. And I guess whether it's my personality or being a little bit, older, I was 39, understanding what winning is, what being the champion means. And even then, I could no way have expected it to be what it actually was. But it was even greater than what I actually even anticipated. But I did anticipate that having that victory, having that title is something that people don't have.
Right.
You know?
I mean, it's unique in a very strange sense, because Chris, Greg, and yourself, those 3 years in a row, you guys became, and I mentioned this to Greg and Chris as well, sort of like the traveling band ambassadors for poker for many years to come. But you guys were also sort of the perfect match. All three of you were family men. None of you guys were like, young club goers every single night. So it was also like the perfect sort of combination of people who in the era where online poker became bigger and bigger, you three guys were sort of the fathers traveling to tour together, and that was also the perfect fit. And, I'm not going to say that Steve Danneman would not have been a perfect fit, because he was sort of in the same situation. But it is sort of funny how that played out and how you guys sort of were brought together by this unique shared experience.
Well, we're the three amigos, man. We did so much together. We formed such a good bond. And you're right. We ticked very similar boxes, the three of us. And I think PokerStars loved it. Like, Isai loved the fact that we were three representatives who were family men like him. They were some of the best times. Like, honest to God, like, I feel so blessed to have been involved and part of it in that, those first few years after 05. It was a time of innocence, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think for many people, this was also the jump-off point for their passion for the game, whether it was professionally or just recreationally. Like, this was a shared experience for poker fans all over the world. And right now, as we're doing the show, and I'd like to address the people at home, and I know we're not live in the moment, but we are live with you in thought. And please, let us know how you feel about the show in the comments and in the chat. And I'm definitely going to be in there trying to chat with you guys while this is all going on. And don't forget to like and subscribe, by the way. That is very important for the channel. And if you've missed any of the previous episodes, those are all available on PokerGo as well. With Greg Raymer, with Chris Moneymaker, I had Nick Schulman on the show to watch the Scotty win 50K, the very, very famous 50K where he went off a little bit. So we have a lot of good content here on the YouTube channel as well as on Facebook. But today we are deep into the 05 main event, which of course was headlined by Mike Matisow, who was the star of the show. And then slowly but surely, Joe Hachem gains some ground. And we're getting the chip counts here on the screen. Brad Kondracki just doubled up through Daneman. Daneman towards the bottom of the counts, which is something that most people probably forgot at this point, that he was short for quite some time. The bottom four, Joe, you're just sitting there tied with Bergsdorf for 5th place, and then it's Cantor and Andy Black there at the top. Were you worried, fearing, or nervous about any of these players as far as having played with them during the tournament?
To be honest, the only one that I was worried about was Andrew Black. He was super good, man. He was very good. Everyone else, I was like with Cantor, I felt like I was playing a computer, so that was fine. So I knew he was likely to do anything. The rest were okay, but Andy Black was the one that I felt like I have to think a lot harder about how to play him. Interesting about Steve is when Steve started building his chip stack up and he was playing super aggressive, and his comment was, "I've got nothing to lose. I'm already way further than what I ever thought I would be." I decided that I'm not going to really be involved in a tussle with Steve unless I've got him by the throat, because I don't want to be put in a spot to make a tough decision,
Right.
And that was my strategy. Like, beware of Andy Black. Stay away from Steve unless you've got him, because he's going to put pressure on you. If someone's got nothing to lose, they're the worst opponents, right? They're the most fearsome opponents because they're happy. He's already ticked his goal. I haven't ticked my goal yet. And obviously Cantor was dangerous as well. So Tex was just a solid player. Scotty was solid. The other two guys.
Let's watch this moment. Big moment here between Steve Daneman and Mike Mattisau.
Yeah. This is crazy.
Was I right? Do you have a hand? I was right.
He was right indeed. Mattisau with the advantage with all his chips in the pot. And that's exactly what a poker player wants to have happen.
Mattisau picks off Daneman, makes a great read.
Got a couple outs.
Indeed, Daneman can hit an ace or a jack. He's got a backdoor flush draw and a gut shot straight draw.
Good luck.
A contrast in attitude between the happy-go-lucky
Mike was so
Steve
emotional,
Daneman
man.
and the brooding Mike Mattisau.
Well, the brooding one on the verge of a big double up as we go to the turn.
Now the turn card. Turn is a 4. Daneman got the straight, and suddenly Mattisau on the brink of elimination.
Rewarded, huh? What a read, dude. I knew he didn't have anything.
Daneman's got a straight. Mattisau can get the same straight with an ace or 6 on the river and chop the pot.
No justice when I play great. Ain't no justice in poker.
He's always so humble. I love Mike.
Card is a 9. Mike Mattisau, the first player eliminated from this championship table. The only one with final table experience in the main event.
And it's pretty clear that Daneman almost feels bad to cheer because he put a bad beat on Mikey, who is clearly, he's an emotional mess after this. He poured his heart and soul into it, and after going deep in 04, now to finish 9th in 05 is just a tremendous accomplishment. But still, he's in tears right here.
Just, I guess he'd been around a lot longer, and he's carrying a lot, many more scars and wounds than the rest of us. Which is why, he's an emotional guy anyway. So am I, to be honest. But I guess having come close, and he's been in the scene for so long, and obviously wanting this so desperately, I understand where he's coming from.
Right. Did the mood in the room change because Mattisau was obviously the big star? He was the big name at the final table.
I think that for those of us that were playing, we were too focused on the game. But the room stayed full, and when Mike's people left, even more people came in. It was just an exciting time for poker. And now everyone knows that someone's going to win who isn't a star. isn't already a name in poker, which was exciting.
Right. But back then as well, who's Joe Hachem? Like until you won, you were also, just some guy from Australia who came in to play the main event, and then, from that moment forward, all of a sudden you are the big name. Your poker resume up until entering the main event in 2005, what was that like? I know you made a final table just a few days before the main event, but also you had some cashes in Australia, so there must have been quite the ramp up to deciding to take that flight to go to Vegas.
So my history prior to 2005, in the early 2000s, I made every final table of every main event in Australia without winning an event. I was consistently the chip leader going into the final table and blowing myself up or getting unlucky. And then 2004, 2005, I started playing a lot of online poker. And that's what basically funded my trip to Vegas.
And
that's what helped me.
At that point, were you like, I am among the better players, or was it like a dream to just play it and tick it off the bucket list? Like, how were you feeling about poker in that moment?
No, I definitely felt like I was among the better players. In saying that, though, after I played the first event at WSOP where I came 10th, I was at the cage with my brother, collecting my money. And I turned and said, Tony, let me play with these guys for 2 weeks and I'll show you what I can do. Because I felt like in that 3-day tournament, I learned so much from playing with people like Freddie Deeb and those guys back then who, I aspired to be like. I was like a sponge. It was like coming from Australia, playing in our small fields here, then playing online poker, but then going and playing at the World Series with people who have been doing this professionally for a long time. And I was sitting there, I was watching everything, man. Like, I learned so much in that first tournament. I said, Tony, give me 2 weeks with these guys playing. I'll show you what I can do.
Well, you definitely showed them. Brad Kondracki going to the rail here by the hands of Andy Black in 8th place.
Nice guy, Brad. I haven't seen him for like 14 years.
Right.
I saw him in 2006, and I haven't seen him since. I don't know if he plays anymore.
Yeah, I really wondered the same thing. Brad, if you're watching, let us know. Hit us up. Let us know how you're doing. We're curious as well.
Hi, Paul, as well, Brad.
But I'm curious too, Joe, because you're the winner. But if you don't win, is that like still going to spark a big-time poker career, or is it more so a reason to sort of take the money and start the businesses that you ended up starting after winning?
Dude, I've had this same conversation so many times. I've always said, if I didn't win, I didn't get sponsorship, then I'm coming back home doing my thing, and I'll go to Vegas the next year.
Right.
But unfortunately, not everyone understands that. Scotty went through a tough time the next couple of years because he wanted to validate his 6th place, and he chased a dream. And I said, Scotty, what are you doing? Take the money, dude. Enjoy it. Keep playing the way you're playing. I was fortunate, and I knew that winning changes everything. I knew that the sponsorship is what changes everything. Yeah, and it gave me my opportunity to go out and do what I had to do, or what I could do.
Right. All right, first, Joe Hachem action here at the final table. Call a raise from Cantor with 10-9, flop a 10, and you lead out into him right away.
But when he crippled Greg Raymer, it was an uncallable flop.
This kid had balls, man, let me tell you.
Later in that hand.
Cantor does make the call. Hachem a 4-1 advantage to the turn. Hachem still leads, but Cantor with a draw. Action on Joseph Hachem.
I'll bet.
That's
1 million.
1 million is the one.
Hachem with a stack of 1 million.
For Cantor, the jack, maybe the best card he could have seen on the turn other than the queen.
Come on. All in.
I don't know if it was that good. He pushes hard with an up and down straight draw.
Hachem is miffed that he's in this predicament.
Well, give these young guys credit.
All right, Joe, how do we get here? You lead the flop after flopping top pair against a very aggressive player. You know, talk me through thought process. How do you feel about it now versus back then?
I didn't like his call on the flop. I didn't think he was just floating with air. And then he makes a ridiculous move against me when I've got 1 million chips in there. Like, I should call every day of the week, you know? But I was just like, I thought I can find a better spot. You know, I think I might be drawing dead here. And look, he gets there. He got there all the time. Like, I can't remember how many chips I had left. I think maybe I had 2.5 million chips left. So I had a third of my stack in there. This hand got me down to like 2.5 million for like 10 hours after that. In the moment, I didn't think he had a draw. I thought he actually had me crushed.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, kudos to him for getting me to fold my hand. But, you know, I don't know. It worked out okay for me, I guess.
Yeah, but it was also a bit of a stack preservation for you, of course. I mean, look here, down to 2.5 million, Bergsdorf just above you with 2.7 million. You know, your hands are sort of tied at this final table. People are looking at you to bust out next. That is sort of the situation that you're in right now. I mean, you even have to like almost scoot over because the stack to your left is so big. That it's a really strange situation. Andy Black just basically running over the table for most of the day. Put some context towards how long this final table was and how much of a grind it was for you. Basically, the next few hours.
So we played 14 hours. It was a very long final table, and for at least half the time, I was hovering around 2.5 million.
Wow.
And I'm not sure how it happened, but occasionally I'd just be able to pick up the blinds and antes. And then they would play the big pots against each other. You know, like it just, a lot of things got to go right for you to win a big poker tournament like this. A lot of things got to go right. And this is one of the things that they kind of just said, oh yeah, he's out, so let's just play poker. But I was still there. And they were playing big pots against each other all the time. And I just ducked and weaved as best as I could. You're right about the Aaron Cantor hand. It was, you know, my decision was to preserve my stack, you know. Thought there's a lot on the line here. I'm either drawing dead or I'm flipping. I'm not drawing dead, but I'm either like in deep trouble or I'm flipping. I can find a better spot. Like if let's say the turn card was not the jack, say it was, I don't know, like another small card, the hand is over, right?
Right.
It gives him the opportunity to, because A, he could have hit the jack, B, he could have had flopped a set, and C, he could have been playing an overpair, you know, quietly. So, yeah, it was a tough grind, man. It was a tough grind, but I just stayed focused. That's all I can say. I mean, thinking back on it, how many hands I folded, and I remember being so frustrated with Aaron. Like, he was so aggressive, you know, and I could not fight. Which when a hand comes up later on, you'll understand I'll explain my play when that hand comes up.
Right now, we're watching a big pot where Andy Black flops a set against Cantor's pair, and Andy Black is trying to talk Cantor into calling. They're already playing a pot that's about 4 times your stack, which is insane. And then Cantor gives it up, and Black rakes in another pot with a big Irish rail in the crowd as well. Probably a good moment to talk about your support here on the rail. Of course, your brother is shown on the rail quite a few times, but who did you have there with you? And were you guys there on a trip the entire time, or did they fly in because you were doing well?
There were about 6 of us who were on the trip together, and there's another 4 to 6 Aussies who were there anyway. And as the field whittled down to just me in the main event, everyone just came together to support me. Led by my brother, obviously. But it was crazy. And how we found 2 Australian flags, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Amazing.
I mean, the timing could not have been any better. I mean, that's sort of
amazing.
It sort of fills the whole picture. That must have also made front page news in Australia.
It didn't just make front page news, dude. It was everything. Literally made the headline news. When I came back from the airport, from Vegas, I had to do a press conference at the airport with like 50 reporters.
Wow.
Like the whole, and I was making, from the time I made the final table to the victory, I was like on the front page every day. It was crazy. It was the biggest thing Australian sport had seen for a while.
Wow. So what's it like to then all of a sudden go on TV and take phone calls from radio stations and be the center of attention after, you were a chiropractor who loved to play poker, and all of a sudden you're in the spotlights in this crazy way?
I don't know, Rem. I think I was in training for this my whole life, which is why it was just not. I'm very strange. I don't know. It just didn't faze me. I felt like I was just, I went on so many, TV shows, and I was comfortable in front of the camera, and I was just like, I've been doing it my whole life. I don't know why. I had no experience, but it was easy. I know some people find it extremely difficult and don't like the spotlight. And I'm not an attention seeker by any means. Like I try and avoid attention, but if attention comes, I'm comfortable with it, if that makes sense.
Right here, hand, you open up with King Queen, and immediately after everybody wants to set their stack on fire. You fold right away. Bergsdorf gets it all in against Barch, and we have another all in.
Daniel Bergsdorf has the lead, but at risk of elimination, holding pocket jacks against the 2-10s of Tex Barch.
Bergsdorf started the day in the middle of the pack.
Daniel Bergsdorf disappeared off the face of the planet after 05. I've never heard of him or seen of him since.
Same.
I think he's from...
You're from Sweden, right?
He's one of the Nordic countries for sure. Not sure where.
I think he was from Sweden.
Yeah.
But yeah, 10 on the flop for Tex Barch, who could not do anything wrong the entire tournament. He, of course, also the guy who knocked out Greg Raymer, where he got it all into the tournament with just a flush draw, and Raymer busted in, I believe, 24.
No, that was Aaron Cantor.
Oh, was that Cantor?
Yeah, Cantor couldn't do anything wrong.
Oh, that was Cantor. Right. No, well, now Barch gets hit in the face with the deck, but those guys both, by the way, sort of interchangeable as far as my memory of it. The aggression and playing big pots and stuff. And they were the young guys that I expected to see for many years to come, but that never really materialized.
Yeah, Tex. I became good friends with Tex. I really like Tex. He had a bit of a downturn. He started playing some bigger games, got a little bit unlucky. But I think now he's doing great. He's doing his thing. He's got a couple of bars and he's got good businesses somewhere. His family's good. And Aaron, I think, went back to playing a lot more online poker. I think he killed it. I'm not sure what he's doing now. I saw him a couple of times playing live, but I didn't really see him on tour a lot. Tex for the first few years I did, but then he just dropped out. And I think he's just taking care of his family and business and plays poker back home with his crew. So,
right. I just Googled Daniel Bergsdorf to see what his results have been since. He had that, 7th place in the main event. That was his first ever live cash. And then he got 4 more cashes in the following 2 years. And then he had 1 cash in 2018 in Sweden. So he probably just, had to change the lifestyle and then plays poker now for fun. That's at least what I'm assuming from looking at this.
Or maybe he just plays online.
Yeah, it's very possible as well. All right, so the event is progressing. It is still very dark in the room, and you said it was very hot in there as well, which probably added to the feeling of that final table. When you're the player at the final table who's sitting on a small stack, does it make life easier, or does it start to frustrate you over time?
No, I think it makes life easier because your decisions are very simple. You can't. Oh, this is incredible. We have to talk about this.
All right, let's listen in.
As it is, neither of our players in the hand have a pocket ace. Black leads with his pocket eights. Both players check. Now the turn, a third.
Scotty
ace on
Lazar
board.
loses his mind after this hand because he folded ace-5, didn't call. And he should have called the raise pre-flop, sure. But in his mind, the stress of the moment made him believe that he was going to win all these chips off Andy Black. But he wouldn't have won anything off Andy Black. How much can Andy Black put into the pot with a pair of eights? Right?
Yeah.
And this hand set up what happens in the next two hands, which is insane. This is insane.
Easy call.
Scotty's fuming right now. He's just like, he's at boiling point.
Tex Barch sent 1 million chips over to Andrew Black in that hand. Scott Lazar had a chance to pick up a lot of chips, but ended up folding what would have been quad aces.
So you and Scott Lazar have had a bond, and there was a story written a couple of years ago when Scott visited you in Australia and you were trying to help him out. You know, what was it? Was it sort of the poker that ultimately didn't work out for him, and how do you sort of look back on like your relationship with him and how that sort of developed?
Scotty and I became quite friendly. I mean, he had 2 kids about the same age as 2 of my kids, and we spent a lot of time together. And 2008, the GFC really screwed him. He lost his house. His business went under. He was, trying to make a movie at the time, film producing, and the poker wasn't going great. And he went down a spiral. He went down a rabbit hole. And we stayed friends the whole time. And then finally, I just pulled the pin. I said, "Come and live with me for 6 months. Let's get you out of this. Oh, you got to watch this.
The hand.
I'll pause it so I can finish my story."
Yeah, go ahead.
So I brought him down here. He stayed with me. Worked in one of my restaurants. Just lived, spent that time training, exercising, dieting, living, away from that LA life. And it really changed his life. I'm very happy to say that he's, from where he was to where he is 2 years later, he's on top of the world.
Wow.
He lost over 100 pounds. He trains regularly. He eats well. He looks after himself, and his attitude is so much better, like for the future and for himself. And he's a guy that's just all heart, he's just all heart. And he's also the sort of friend that he would jump in front of the book for you. So he's a good guy. And to me, seeing that change in him that he didn't even think was possible. Like, he looks better now than what he's ever done in his whole life.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's doing great, and I'm happy to say that he's doing great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then, back to 15 years ago, 2005, boiling point Scott Lazar, after just feeling as if he missed out on the jackpot with the quad aces that he folded.
Yeah, now it's small blind, big blind, me and him. He's picked up king 9 of spades, and all he can think about is how many chips he didn't win the hand before.
After laying down his ace last time, he's eager for some action.
And like I said, with my stack, I have easy decisions. It's not like complicated.
He snap called your shove.
Yeah.
I'm in front.
You are. I don't want to make a flush, that's for sure.
Good luck, man.
Well, I'm not only surprised that Lazar called here, I'm surprised at how quickly he called. There was no need for this. I think he had a little brain bubble.
Flop 3 spades and don't worry about it.
Hachem is holding the ace-queen of spades. He'd love to see a flush.
And it's Joseph Hachem whose tournament life is at stake here.
Gamble, gamble. Still got chips to play with.
Scott's pretty much conceding this hand and can live with the fact that he'll still have 2.9 million chips to play with.
He started the hand with about 5.5 million, and now the flop is 10-4. Ace Hachem.
Couldn't ask for a better flop, right?
I mean, talking about flopping him dead. I mean, that's just incredible. When a moment like this happens, tournament life is on the line in the main event at the final table. Is the adrenaline coming out of your ears, or are you able to enjoy the moment a little bit?
There was no enjoyment. I was just in the moment. I was just focused, dude. Like, I just had, I was just focused. I'm just playing to win, and just making good decisions.
And this is the first time we hear the Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi chant at the final table. What's that like? Because, I'm from the Netherlands. People that are watching this are probably mostly from the USA. But if you're from a country that is not America, being in America and doing something great, having your country behind you adds sort of an extra layer of excitement. I can only imagine that must have been, a tremendous amount of mental support.
Crazy. Crazy. I can't put into words how strengthening it is to have that. Here's the next. This is a hand right after now. Back-to-back hands.
350,000.
He raises on the button.
Andrew Black, pocket jacks.
Call. I'll give you a gamble.
And here we go
He just
again.
calls off with queen 10.
Lazar
He's shaking his head. He's so frustrated. Scotty broke down in tears after this.
Wow.
Just from the and he said to me, he goes, just the emotion of it all. I couldn't take it anymore.
It's a famous quote now, him saying, I'll give you a gamble, because that's what he was doing. He was gambling.
Yep.
for the poker paramedics.
Lazar played so well all week. His play actually mirrored Mattisau's, pretty tight, picking up some pots once in a while with a good bluff.
Turns a 4, a blank for Lazar, down now to his last chance.
Scott Lazar down to perhaps his final card of this main event. He will need a queen, and if Lazar loses here, he'll replay this three-hand sequence in his head many, many times over. Lazar needs a queen and a queen only, or his main event is over.
And now the river card is a king. Andrew Black wins it, and Scott Lazar quickly eliminated.
And that was it for Scott Lazar.
Self-destructive.
Yeah, he said it straight away. He knew what he'd done.
Right.
And you had been so aggressive, I had to gamble with you again.
Lazar had a wonderful run with a not-so-wonderful ending. $1.5 million should soothe the pain, though.
And all of a sudden, you're five-handed. One less player to contend with. Obviously, eyes on the prize in this situation. But more chips even for Andy Black, who was still on your left.
Yeah. That was not fun. That was not fun.
Steve Danneman, we're seeing him here up close. You are still sitting here on only 4 million chips. Cantor on 11 million. We saw Danneman with 7.5. And then we get Tex Barge with 13.6. And the chip leader, Andy Black, who is sitting on 20 million.
I had 20% of Andy's stack, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you play this final table 100 times, how many times does Andy Black win the tournament?
Oh my gosh, a lot. Over 50%, I'd say.
Wow, that's so crazy. I mean, we'll get into the hands, the hands that sort of got him to give up the big lead. But was there a lot of time between Scott Lazar busting and Andy Black busting? Because at the end of the day, a lot happened in that span of time. But for us, it's hard to gauge, how quickly that went.
Yeah. Yeah, there was. I mean, look, you can see by their chip stacks, and how I survived with 4 million chips, where my closest opponent had 3 times as many chips as me. I have no idea. I really don't. I can't recall all the hands, but I do remember, like, opportune times where I'd raise, they'd fold. Raise, they'd fold. Just keep me going, I don't really remember winning any pots, because up until a hand after, when I play against Cantor after Andy Black goes, I don't remember raking in any decent pots.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy the way it played out. I mean, Andy Black and Cantor, I mean, you got trip kings, pretty easy to play with that. But, they were also playing very big pots, despite the fact that you were sitting on such a short stack. The ICM implications were enormous.
Exactly right. When you think about the ICM implications, it's just retarded.
Yeah, it's really crazy when you think about that. Let's also dive in a little bit because we have some time here as we're watching this final table. For the people who are just tuning in, this is the 2005 main event final table. We're watching it with Joe Hachem, the champ from back in the day, and we are doing Run It Back. This show is airing twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Next Tuesday, Daniel Negreanu is going to join me to watch the 2006 Tournament of Champions. So we're staying with the old school footage, and then hopefully later that week, I'm going to have Jamie Gold on the show to watch the 06 main event final table. Joe, winning this tournament obviously was a long, strenuous 14-hour day after days and days of playing poker. But was there any energy left for perhaps a big party or celebration?
We finished at like 7 a.m. in the morning.
Wow. Oh my God. Yeah. I had no idea.
Went home, and our hotel told us that they couldn't extend our stay, even though we told them we just won $7.5 million. And Mandalay Bay said, sorry, we can't extend your stay. And then the Wynn sent over a couple of limos and organised rooms for us. So I got rooms for everybody. And we stayed at the Wynn and basically went up to our rooms and just passed out. And as I was leaving the Rio, there was Steve Danneman playing $25 craps at 7:30 in the morning. He's hilarious. We passed out. I remember waking up like at about 11 o'clock. I went to the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I started crying. And because that's when it actually hit me. The adrenaline was now, I realized, what had happened. That night, we had a big dinner, just everyone that was part of the crew, we had a big dinner. And then we went to one of the bars at the Wynn. And then the security kept on bringing girls over to the thingo, and I kept on palming them off to all the single guys. But yeah, that was about it. There was really, we didn't even go to a club. We just went to a bar. Yeah, that was it.
Back to the action here. Steve Danneman, ace-10. You got the ace-jack.
Notes.
Notes. He's got the notes.
You got notes on me, Steve?
No notes for the tournament.
Oh, for the tournament.
Number one, have fun. Number two, you have nothing to lose.
There's Jerry Ditzel, Steve's.
Man, where do you get this today?
I know.
Right? Look how relaxed we are. We're playing for millions of dollars. Like,
one says,
it's insane how good this is.
Is only a small mistake. It's only a small mistake.
Compared to what?
So,
Danneman folds. Asher would have loved to play against Danneman. He had him dominated.
Oh.
How can you fold that hand? You had a
because
monster.
it's only a small mistake.
Here we go again.
So by this stage, there were like half a dozen Americans and Canadians who joined the crew.
Oh, wow.
And they were screaming as well.
That's amazing. You guys are also genuinely having a good time. You just emphasized it, but it also is very clear in the broadcast. And this is an hour and a half of footage from a 14-hour day. And, you guys are pretty deep into the night here, and you guys are still having a good time. Was it Steve Danneman that made this possible with his sort of laid-back attitude? Or, what made it happen in this specific way?
100% Steve was the major factor in this. Steve had a big influence. If it was just the rest of us, it would have been different. Yeah, Steve was free rolling. He was just in his mind, hey, I'm having a blast. I'm going to have a great time here. The rest of us were trying to win. But his relaxed attitude helped us a lot, helped me a lot.
Right.
I mean, you see Tex is very quiet the whole time. Andy's a sort of half and half. Aaron, but Steve and I, we just enjoyed the moment.
We're still 5-handed in the 05 main event. You are still the short stack. Of course, that is the running theme here of this final table. Tex Barge raising it up with the King, Queen of Hearts. Let's have a look.
Steve Danneman, 39 years old from Severn, Maryland. Ace 6 of hearts.
Call.
He's in the pot. Over to Joseph Hachem. He says no thanks. Andrew Black. We're going to have to send him to our Pocket Cam seminars. Just a 9.
Should penalize him by turning his sunglasses the right side up.
In the big blind, he does call. 3 to the flop. The flop is 5, 9, 6, a couple of clubs. Black pairs his 9. Danneman pairs his 6.
Million.
Andrew Black with a million chips. Tex Barch gets out of the way.
Danneman with middle pair, the 6s.
I don't remember this hand.
All in.
I think. Oh, I do remember this hand.
And he pushes.
I think he should have checked his notes list.
Oh, wow. That's over 7 million chips more.
Well, we know that Black has at least a pair of 9s. We know his 9s are good.
I think Andy has
but
10
does
9s
Andrew
on
Black
him.
think they're good?
It's a huge moment.
Yeah, he calls off.
Andrew Black once again being put to the test by a first-timer here at the World Series.
Call.
And Black's gonna make the call. And Steve Danneman will be all in.
And behind.
And Danneman flips over his cards.
Yes!
Only
Come on,
6s.
I mean, how different are things if Danneman hits the rail here?
Yeah, of course. Andy, unstoppable now.
Right.
The fact that Steve got the chips here was, and I'm going, yes, I please Steve hit an ace or a 6. Like, I want Steve to get the chips.
It's been fun, man. Good luck.
I think Andy's call is very thin here, though.
Right. Because Steve had been playing pretty tight as well, and you know,
Yeah.
what's in his range that he really
You've
beats?
got top care, no kicker. I mean, you're not really crushing, or beating much. Look at this.
I mean,
yeah, that was a turning point for Andy.
That's the end of Andy Black. Like, really, that's where it starts. It starts to crumble and fall apart. And he had the massive empire for many, many hours, and you can even see it in his face. Like, he looks dejected after this.
Correct.
Which is an emotion that you didn't really have to deal with because you were just sitting there. Like, it's a very different sort of tournament, and it's almost as if you had a lot of mental energy left towards the end because you did not have to battle in the streets every time.
That's such a good point, Rem. I've spoken about that a bit, where they were exhausted from battling. I was just sitting there minding my own business. Like, I really, when it came to like to 4-handed, 3-handed, I was the one that had all the energy to play and the mental space and the capacity. They were just exhausted because they had to make all these big decisions all the time. Whereas with my little stack, I was like, it was an easy decision, either fold or play.
Yeah, I mean, being the short stack, as you mentioned before, is a lot easier than being the one driving the bus like Andy Black did for like 10 hours straight, which is pretty crazy to think about.
Crazy.
Will put up half of Danneman's $10,000 buy-in. Danneman always happy, says he still clips coupons. That's going to end.
Joseph Hachem.
Oh, cool.
Jack 9 offsuit. Gonna call the big blind. Andrew Black will sit this one out.
So you limped in here, Joe. Do you remember why you decided to limp in general? Because it wasn't a very common strategy.
No, I'm trying to remember what it was. Which hand this was?
Aaron Cantor, King 5 offsuit.
And he can play for free big blind.
So it's Cantor's big blind. And you limped in. Yeah.
To the flop. It comes 7, King 10. Barge grabs command with 2 pair.
Cantor picks up kings. Hachem has a double belly buster straight draw, and it's checked over to Hachem.
450.
He bets 450,000.
I think the only reason I may have limped in was because I knew that Cantor was just like raising every hand. I didn't want to get 3-bet off the hand.
Right. And basically, what you were afraid of before the flop happens on the flop, which is kind of funny.
But what happens here in this hand is the most outrageous thing I've seen. Do you remember this? What happens?
Let's see.
Hachem now gets out of the way.
Outrageous.
Cantor heads up. Action on Barch, who re-raises 2.5 million chips more.
Tex has been playing solid, has not stepped out of line for the entire tournament.
Come on.
Cantor is going to push now. Wow.
Oh, jeez. Lana, I don't know how Aaron can think his kings are good here. Tex Barch has not been splashing around a lot of pots, and Tex has just raised twice here on the flop.
I don't see how I can get away from the hand. I call.
Barch makes the call. The pot is over.
Just drawing dead.
Unreal.
I mean, what gets into Aaron's mind? What does he think he's going to get him to fold here? Like, Tex has put in 2 raises.
Yeah, in a limped pot as well.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's Aaron representing? A set of 7s, a set of kings, a set of 10s? He blocks 7s and kings. The 10s he doesn't block, but he would raise pre-flop with the 10s. King 10 is the only hand that he can represent.
It's true, and it's one of the craziest sort of blow-ups that we've ever seen.
Crazy. This was. I'm watching this and I'm going, oh my god! Like, and I make the straight, by the way, with my Jack 9. Yeah.
Yeah,
if it gets through.
I mean, this goes to show that poker is such a crazy game of extremes, where 1 minute you're on top of the world, the next minute you have, perhaps some kind of brain fart, and all of a sudden you light your stack on fire. It's kind of insane.
I remember a quote a long time ago. I'm not sure who it was, whether Johnny Moss or someone said, poker is about the guy who makes the least mistakes.
Right. Well, Joe, how did you do this? 2.4 million. Tex Barch sits on 10 times as many chips, basically. Daneman just very comfortably sitting back while Cantor and Black are doing most of the tangling. This is an outrageous situation. Like, you are not supposed to win this tournament.
No, not at all. I don't know, man. They kept on fighting. That's why, like, they didn't take into account the ICM implications, right? Like, all they do is just stop and think about it. There's so much more money. And there's someone who's got like 10 or 15 big blinds.
Right. One of the stories that I heard on a recent podcast you did with some Australian poker media colleagues was about how this was being followed in Australia in real time. Talk a little bit about, take us back to 2005. There's no live stream. Live reporting was still in its infancy. How were people in Australia following this as it was happening?
So they were clicking refresh on Poker News or whatever it was back then. Poker News, I think so. Like, obviously the updates were, not as good as they are today. And the poker room in Australia, in the Vegas room at Crown, the whole room was just waiting for the poker room host to come out from the back room every 5 or 10 minutes and say, oh, there's 7 left. Joe's got this many chips. And it was just insane. Insane. I've heard some really great stories of people who just stopped playing and just were waiting for the updates all the time.
Oh, that's incredible. Here, you're all in for your tournament life.
In a race against Steve. Dude. He actually started coughing up blood. He screamed that loud.
Oh my God, that's insane.
Aussies are passionate about their games, and Hachem's win here would give the land down under a good reason to cheer.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Oi, oi, oi!
It's become a chant in any sporting event where Australians are playing.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Oi, oi, oi!
We love our sport.
G'day.
Wherever we are, at any sporting event, absolutely passionate. All of Australia's going crazy. Everybody just banded together, and they've just been with me the whole way.
Aussie, Aussie!
All I've done is play each day as it comes, and then if I win this, there won't be anybody that won't know about the World Series of Poker in Australia, and I'll throw the biggest party Melbourne has ever seen.
That did happen, by the way.
Sorry, did or didn't?
That did happen.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's bring it on.
Just hide out this reception center and had like 300 people there, and it was all on. It went forever.
That's awesome. So people who are watching this right now, and by the way, thanks for still being with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that good stuff because it really helps the show. People also have to realize that this, of course, happened. You were the champion. You were bringing home the big bucks in the bracelet, but the footage didn't air on ESPN until much later. So was there a second surge of interest and all that stuff when this started airing? And how long after did it air? And what was it like for the first time watching yourself? Let's watch this hand first and then go into that story because this is a pretty big moment.
Sure.
Chips at risk with pocket 10.
Danneman just lost a race to Hachem. If he wins this race, Andrew Black's day will be over.
It was not too long ago that Andrew Black was our chip leader with 20 million chips, now in danger of losing.
And he knows. He already knows.
Yeah.
He already knows.
The momentum had turned on him.
Yeah, he knows.
Black, obviously emotional, could hardly look. Now the turn card. Oh, the kick! That's what Black was afraid of. Danneman in the lead.
Oh, jeez. And we have seen Black feel other people's pain in this tournament line. It's hard not to feel Black's pain right now.
One card to come. Perhaps in Black's tournament life, he's already putting the coat on.
Black will need a 10, or the one-time massive chip leader at this final table will be gone.
It's a 9.
Oh,
Did you speak to Andy Black? Did you ever talk about this?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time together in Europe and in Vegas and the States. I don't know. He's a bit of a strange cat, Andy. He's a Buddhist with a temper.
He disappeared for a few years, and then all of a sudden he was back. Like he was like on a retreat or something.
Yeah, he took time out to raise his son.
Okay.
Wanted to spend time with his son. He took a few years off, but he wasn't very forthcoming about it. But obviously regrets what could have been. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't I? It's normal stuff.
I mean, you turn yourself from the short stack into the world champ, and you live, with that fame as well as the money for your whole life and all the years to come after. So any person who doesn't get that is always going to think like, what if?
What if, yeah.
Going back to my earlier question while we watch Barch and Cantor involved in another hand, talking about the coverage on ESPN and when that finally aired, what was that like when the whole sort of circus started all over again?
Oh, it was insane. And don't forget, back then, they were re-airing everything like 3 times a day. It was insane. Like, I couldn't go anywhere in the United States, in Australia, in Canada, without being stopped. Like, even 2006 when I came back to the World Series, wow. Oh my gosh. Walking down the corridor of the Rio would take me 40 minutes.
Wow.
It was just insane.
Was there
what a time?
Was there a time where it became too much, or did you soak it all up, and was it just like an awesome experience?
I soaked it all up. It was fine. It was exhausting at times, so I just needed to have time out. Like, I'd go and lock myself in a room somewhere for a little while. But you know what? How can you complain about people loving you? Yeah?
Yeah, it's a good point.
How can people complain about it? And as long as they're not being rude or too intrusive. A couple of times people have been intrusive, but generally, you know, you're getting adoration. You know, you're getting people tell you, oh, you know, watching your World Series changed my life. Like, dude, what do you mean change your life? Like, you know, oh, I remember one old guy at the Bahamas told me that watching my World Series was the highlight of his life. Like, what are you talking about? You know, you have to love that.
Right.
You have to say, you know, I'm blessed to be in a position that people feel this way about something that I've done, you know, like, or was part of.
But in Sports Crazy Australia, I can only imagine that you were all of a sudden vaulted into sort of being a sports celebrity almost, where it becomes aspirational for people.
Very much so. This is the hand that we need to watch.
All right.
And Barch will play over to Aaron.
So
Cantor.
I limp on the button here
Pocket nines.
with the intention of re-raising, because
will raise it up to 1 million.
I didn't realize at the time that Cantor always had hands.
Again.
Oh, geez,
But I just decided, you know what? I'm going to limp, re-raise all in if he makes any moves. And he's woken up with nines.
I call.
And Aaron Cantor likes his nines and will make.
And I was whatever happens, happens. You know, I made my play. I'm making my stance. Whatever happens, happens.
You were grabbing the Starbucks as if you anticipated him always folding.
Yes. Yeah, because I didn't expect him to have another hand.
That doesn't mean anything. Didn't you rename the river card the Cantor?
I did. Oh boy, Hachem with a big lead
for now.
Probably deserve that.
Well, there's a good chance Cantor used up a lot of his karma earlier in this main event. Now the turn card.
Up until this point, he's the one who's been putting bad beats on everyone.
Right.
On everyone.
And now all of a sudden you hit that queen, and this is where things really start, you know, changing and shifting. But you still didn't really get out of line. You still didn't you know, force the issue.
No, I still play solid. What we don't see here is between winning this pot and getting down to three-handed, I won a lot of pots with ace high. Like, I was check calling with ace high, or value betting, you know, with bottom pair, stuff but small pots, not big pots, but they weren't. And I was accumulating chips. I was now, because I wasn't exhausted from playing and I had some chips, I could use them.
And we can see that because now all of a sudden you're up to 17 million, and now it's a fair fight.
Yeah. So I went from 4 to 8. So from 8 to 17, that was all without any real major conflict.
And that, of course, is not nearly as much fun to show on TV. So we never got to.
No, of course not.
We never got to see that battle.
He's a kid with a dream.
Danneman folds. Now over to Joseph Hachem.
Look at all those chips. So exciting. So exciting having chips in front of you.
Jacks.
Call.
And he does make the call. Aaron Cantor is all in and behind.
Aaron Cantor might appear to be a 3-1 underdog right now, but I still got him as a 1-9 fave.
See, I can guarantee you, Aaron and Andy Black at different times were totally in belief that they're winning this event.
Right.
And rightly so, 100%.
Aaron got a pair of nines, but Barch still leads.
It's a mixed bag flop for Cantor. A heart draw now for Barch, so the ace of hearts no good for Aaron.
Now the turn is an 8, and Aaron Cantor closer to the rail.
Well, he's been pushed to that rail all week long, but he just won't go.
Tex Barch with a chance to knock off a player who has had a huge impact in this main event.
Does Cantor have one more dredge the bottom of the riverbed miracle in him? He needs a 9 or a non-heart ace.
The river card is a jack. Aaron Cantor's run out of miracles and is eliminated by Tex Barch.
Don't worry, if you feel like you made a couple mistakes, don't worry about it.
All of a sudden, you're three-handed there for the bracelet with a real chance, and the stacks are fairly even. I want to go back real quick to the impact it had in Australia, because we haven't really touched on that all too much. You you know, Sports Crazy Australia, the flags come out. You guys, of course, at the Olympics and at any sporting event where Australia participates, have a massive roaring crowd. What was it like to be the Chris Moneymaker for an entire country?
I have no words, my friend. I have no words. It was so surreal. Even today, 15 years later, like, I'm blessed. What can I say? Like, it's great. You know, like, Australia greeted me with open arms and gave me a huge hug, and you know, I'm so very proud. Like, my Lebanese heritage, obviously, I'm proud of, but Australia is my home, is my country, and I relate to being Australian as much as I do to being of Lebanese ethnicity, if not more. And I was so proud to be a Lebanese Australian when I won, but I actually celebrated as an Australian. You know, to me, it was like I was coming back home to Australia with the title, and Australia loved it, and they, you know, it's funny the amount of respect that you get, the adoration, I mean, it goes back to how you present yourself and how you deal with it as well. Like, it's not just if you're a dickhead, you're a dickhead. People, you know, right? But at the same time, it's very humbling. It's very humbling. It's and I think you have to be mindful of the fact that you didn't cure cancer. You won a poker tournament, and yet people are putting you up on this pedestal. So it's always about giving back and being respectful and being kind and being appreciative and sensitive. And I've tried to do that, you know, my whole life. So, yeah, even today, I just, 15 years later, I think, fucking hell, how lucky am I, you know, like, that I've been able to be in this position.
And you've, of course, not only played a lot of poker after that, you've had other successes as well, but you've also really, you know, grown your footprint with the Hachem family in Melbourne, you know, through various businesses, which is really cool. So, you know, for the people that are wondering, like, what has Joe Hachem been up to, you know, that is something that I'm also curious about. So I know that, you know, the current climate with COVID-19 is obviously awful for everyone, both health reasons and business reasons. But, you know, what have you been up to? Because that is something that I think many people are curious about.
So basically, I've become an investor / property developer / restaurant owner. I've got my fingers in a lot of pies. One of them is Australia's most successful production house. We have 2 restaurants. One's a Lebanese restaurant. The other one's a cafe in the city. I've done a number of property developments across Melbourne. You know, my kids are all involved in different businesses. My youngest son has his own skin beauty product line called Elias Skin, which is crushing life with it at the moment. And yeah, it's, to me, I found that it was priority for me to use that opportunity to build a legacy for my family. You know, I came out to Australia as an immigrant in 1972. My family had to borrow money to come out to Australia. They never had any money to give me or to support me or to even give me a foundation. I had to do it all by myself. And I believe that it's my role to give my kids a foundation to build a future for the next generations. You know, and that's what I've been working towards, basically. You know, that's what keeps me motivated today. You know, at the age of 54.
You don't look a day over 40, Joe. Come on.
Thanks, buddy.
Big moment here. You 3-bet Daneman, who raises with sevens. You have the jacks and Barch moves only with ace-6. So sort of a perfect situation in a 3-handed battle to have things play out this way.
Going to be looking for an ace.
Yeah, in today's poker, you know, my hand shuts Deneman out altogether.
Right.
When Barch goes all in, but back then I played it a little bit more cautiously, and probably because, again, I didn't want to really lose my chips. I'm like, I just got my chips, you know.
Yeah, and also, you know, you can run into Daneman's aces for all you know.
He could be trapping me as well.
They'll often check it out unless somebody improves their hand.
Turn card is a queen. Barch running out of chances. Once again, they both check.
And for Tex Barch, down to perhaps his last card, he needs an ace and an ace only to stay alive in the main event.
River card is a 9.
This is a huge pot, like a three-way pot that I just scooped, which puts me like at 2-1 chip lead going into heads up. It's a huge pot.
Insane.
What happens next as we're getting to heads up is really interesting, because Steve comes up and shakes my hand, and you know, blah, he says to me, "Oh, this won't last very long. You know, you're probably going to win because you deserve to win. You know, blah blah blah." And I'm going, "Okay, well, that's great. Is he fucking with me here, or is he like?" But he was being genuine. He was just like, you know, and I realized that he was being genuine, and it kind of set the tone, like for me to believe that nothing's going to stop me from winning this now.
Right. How long did you guys play heads up, and how cautious were you because of that, what you just told me, that you wanted to make sure that, you know, he wasn't playing tricks on you?
Well, heads up lasted 4 hands.
No way. Really?
Yeah, lasted 4 hands. 4 or 5 hands.
Wow.
And basically, again, it's funny. I told you earlier on that my plan was not to play any real big pots with Steve unless I had him by the throat in a clutch position. And the poker gods are funny. 4 hands in, they give me the most perfect position situation I could ask for. With that, you know what's funny is, like, people who don't know poker, they go, "How did you go all in with 7-3? Like, what sort of maniac are you?" Like, even till today, people don't. Dude, it cost me an extra 300,000. I had 50 million in front of me.
Oh my God, that's incredible. Funny little side story here while we watch this beginning of his heads up, or maybe we're only getting to see one hand. I don't even know, but
no, we get to see 2 hands.
2 hands. All right, so time for a quick story. I had Antonio Esfandiari on this very show to watch the big 1-for-1 final table, and you and Antonio have a good relationship as well. He told a story off air afterwards that he said that I should bring up, and he also said that I should tell you that he said hi. He said that there was a really funny story of going to a restaurant in LA after to celebrate. Joe, please tell the story.
Yeah, we've had lots of fun together over the years, and we were just in our early stages of our friendship, but somehow we clicked straight away, right? We have lunch at the Grove in LA. And I invited him to come with his girlfriend, and he brings himself, his girlfriend, and his 10 closest cousins. And Tony never travelled like light back in the day. So me and my family were having lunch at the Grove, and I asked for the check, and the manager or the waitress comes up and goes, "Mr. Hachem, it's an honour having you here. You know, the check's on us." And I like blush a little bit, you know. And then Jeannie goes, she looks down there, she goes, "He paid for it." My wife worked it out straight away, and Antonio just started rolling on the ground laughing. He set me up a beauty, you know. We've had a lot of twos and fros with that a lot over the years. A lot of good times.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And was that shortly after you won?
Yeah, that was like that would have been end of 05 or 06.
Right. That's really funny. That's an awesome story. Yeah. And for the people who missed it,
did he tell you how we became friends?
No, but I want to hear that now.
I'm at the Borgata, and as he tells it to me, he goes, "Look, I was a big fan. I want to come and meet you." I go, "All right." So he comes, he starts showing me card tricks.
Oh, wow.
at the Borgata. And we were playing a tournament. And then we played some cash together, and we were playing, like, I don't know, 25, 50, 50, 100, no limit hold'em. And next thing I know, I've asked him to, next thing I know, he's offered his house for me to stay in for 2 weeks whilst I'm in Vegas with my family, and he's traveling. And he lent me his car. And one day coming back from the Bellagio, I clicked home on the sat-nav, and it was taking me to San Francisco. So I'm lost in the middle of the friggin' Las Vegas, Nevada desert. So as I'm driving down the highway, I see lights coming at me, and I go, okay. And as I'm getting closer and closer, I realize I'm on the wrong side of the road.
Oh, no
driving
way.
this SUV. So that ended up okay, and I got back home. And that story ends with me, when he came back to the Aussie Millions, him and his girlfriend carried 2 huge suitcases for me all the way back home to Australia. That was hilarious. But that was the start of our friendship.
Wow.
And we've been friends since.
That's awesome. All right, let's enjoy this moment here, Joe.
Beckoning each of these players.
Plus, both these guys were born in 1966.
Steve Danneman with ace-3.
Raise.
Offsuit announces a raise. Blinds are at 150 and 300,000. Danneman raises it to 700,000. Hachem was 7-3 offsuit. You play this short-handed even?
Not usually. Well, he can beat the 7-deuce.
Danneman with a 3-1 advantage as we go to the flop. A flop is 4, 5, 6. Hachem flopped a straight.
Well, now he can beat a lot of hands.
Can't fight destiny, man.
No, exactly. When you look at 7-3 in these suits, does it still ring home every time?
Every time. Every time.
Hachem might wait, but he will pounce now.
So how long was this hand? Because it's a 4-minute hand on the broadcast.
Yeah.
Did it also go that fast?
It was longer. Because now I spend a lot of time getting his mindset right. Because I need him to make the call so I can end this here.
Right.
So I talked to him about, are you having fun? You know, are you still having fun? Blah, blah, blah. And then what they don't really show well is I asked him to count his chip stack, and deliberately in the middle of his counting, I said, okay, I'm all in. To kind of like, and that's when he responds, okay, I'm all in too.
Let's
that
listen.
Was all deliberate.
That's a pretty large bet for a young man of your playing ability, huh?
I'm telling you, Lon, these guys should move in together, and ABC has its Odd Couple remake.
I raise $3 million more.
Danneman now announces a raise.
$3 million more to play.
And Hachem next to Wax.
That's right after
trying to
here
figure
that
out
the
how to
speech
get the
starts.
most chips he can out of his opponent.
He does want to double check to make sure he has that straight.
Still we're being friendly. All right, stop. I'm all in.
Joseph
So
Hachem
that's
is going to try to put
missed that.
Danneman all in.
They missed that bit there.
Hachem with the straight.
I'm all in.
And Danneman bites. Joseph Hachem has a straight and a title in the waiting.
Oh, the bracelet.
Now they all start jumping up and down, and I'm going, no, just wait. There's one more card. I know what can happen here.
7 only.
Trying to become the first foreign-born winner of the main event since Carlos Mortensen in 2001.
Hachem flopped the straight.
I mean, what a fucking privilege to be part of history like this. This is, I've been watching this for so long, like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, does it give you goosebumps when you see this again?
Yeah, it brings back a lot of really cool emotions.
Danneman needs a 7, or Joseph Hachem will be our world champion.
And now our river card. It's a bomb! Joseph Hachem stands alone.
Good job, buddy.
The man from down under has reached the pinnacle of poker and will forever be known as the 2005 world champion.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
They didn't show this, but like earlier on when we were maybe 4 or 5 handed, it was so hot in there that I I asked the tournament directors to go out and buy ice creams for everyone and bottles of water because it was so hot in there.
This is your moment.
That's the first time the whole series that I showed any emotion.
Right.
The whole final table.
Exactly. And, you know, the clean look with no patches, wearing the nice dress-up shirt, you know, it was like you were going to a job interview to become a poker ambassador. Oh man, what a crazy ride, Joe! Absolutely incredible to watch this with you again. Can we still expect to see you at some poker events in the future? I know you love playing LAPC. I know you love playing the World Series. You know, COVID, of course, but
don't forget the 5 Diamond
and 5 Diamond, of course. But is that still going to be part of your routine for years to come?
As long as I can, yeah. I mean, they're like my staple. That's my staple for the year. You know, if something interesting comes up, like in Asia or something, I'll do that. But other than that, I love coming to the States to play. I feel, you know, it's funny. You feel most comfortable. You've had most success. And maybe I had the most success there because I was most comfortable there. Who knows? Well, what came first, right? But I've had success in all those 3 tournaments for 15 years. You know, not just every now and again. So I'm not going anywhere, mate. I'm here as long as COVID lets me.
And then maybe just win the Aussie Millions one time?
Oh, man. I'm so over it. We have a love-hate relationship, me and the Aussie Millions. You know.
Oh, man.
But maybe one day. You never know.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll let me in one day.
Maybe one day it'll work out. You got many more years to play in that event. For the people watching, thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to us. Joe, thanks once again for reliving these moments with me. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Man. Thank you.
And with that, I will catch you guys on Thursday night, or Thursday morning, I should say, when Daniel Negreanu joins me to watch the 2006 Tournament of Champions. For Joe Hachem, my name is Remco Rinkema. Thanks so much for being with us, and this was Run It Back.